The sound of shattering glass cut through the piano music in the Silver Spur Saloon, and every patron in Abilene, Kansas turned to see Rosalie Thatcher standing over a pudding-faced cattle baron with bourbon dripping from his mustache and murder in his eyes. It was June of 1878, and the summer heat had turned the frontier town into a pressure cooker of tempers and testosterone. Rosalie worked the saloon 6 nights a week, serving drinks and dodging wandering hands with the precision of a seasoned gunfighter. She was 22 years old, with copper-colored hair that she pinned up tight and green eyes that had seen too much disrespect for someone so young. Her calico dress was faded but clean, and she carried herself with a dignity that seemed to infuriate men who thought her profession made her common property. "You will keep your hands to yourself," Rosalie said, her voice steady despite the trembling in her fingers. The glass had been full when she threw it, and now whiskey dripped down the face of Martin Crenshaw, one of the wealthiest ranchers in Dickinson County. Crenshaw rose slowly, his bulk casting a shadow across the table. He was 50 if he was a day, with a reputation for getting what he wanted and destroying anyone who stood in his way. "You little wildcat, I will teach you some manners." The saloon had gone silent. Even the piano player had stopped mid-chord. Rosalie took a step backward, her hip hitting the edge of a table, bottles rattling at the impact. She had nowhere to go. The other girls had scattered and the bartender was looking pointedly at the wall. No one crossed Martin Crenshaw. "The lady asked you to keep your hands to yourself." The voice came from the doorway, calm and even, with a slight drawl that spoke of Texas or maybe New Mexico. "Seems like a reasonable request." Every head turned. The man standing in the entrance was tall and lean, with sun-darkened skin and dark hair that needed cutting. He wore a dusty brown hat pushed back on his head, a worn leather vest over a blue shirt, and gun belt that sat easy on his hips. His eyes were a startling gray, clear and direct, and they were fixed on Crenshaw with an expression of polite interest that somehow seemed more dangerous than any glare. "This is none of your concern, Drifter," Crenshaw said, though he had not moved toward Rosalie again. "Well now, I am making it my concern." The stranger walked into the saloon with an unhurried gait, his boots striking the wooden floor with measured steps. He moved like water, smooth and inevitable. "A man who cannot respect a woman's boundaries is no man at all in my book. I suggest you apologize to the lady and find somewhere else to drink tonight." Crenshaw's face went purple. "Do you know who I am?" "I know you are a man who just got whiskey thrown in his face for not keeping his hands to himself," the stranger said. "And I am a man who thinks that is probably exactly what you deserved. Now you can apologize, or we can step outside and continue this conversation in the street. Your choice." The silence stretched taut as a rope before a hanging. Crenshaw was a bully, but he was not stupid. The stranger wore his guns like he knew how to use them, and there was something in his stance that spoke of a man who had faced down death before and was not particularly afraid to do it again. "This is not over," Crenshaw finally said, jabbing a thick finger toward Rosalie. He grabbed his hat and pushed past the stranger, his boots heavy on the floorboards as he stormed out into the night. The tension broke like a fever. Conversations resumed, the piano player started up again, and Rosalie found herself staring at the man who had just faced down the most powerful rancher in the territory for her sake. A complete stranger. He turned to her and his expression softened. "Are you all right, miss?" Rosalie realized she was still pressed against the table, her heart hammering in her chest. "I am fine, thank you, you did not have to do that." "I know I did not have to, I wanted to." He moved closer, and she saw that he was younger than she had first thought, maybe 25 or 26, with weathered skin that came from long days under the sun. "Name is Cole Winters. I just rode in from Colorado looking for work." Rosalie Thatcher. She found herself smoothing down her dress, suddenly self-conscious. "I work here, obviously. Nothing obvious about it except that you deserve better than men like Crenshaw treating you like property." Cole's voice was gentle. "If you do not mind my saying so." Rosalie felt something strange and unfamiliar flutter in her chest. She was used to men looking at her with hunger or contempt or a combination of both. Cole Winters looked at her like she was a person, like she mattered. "I should get back to work," she said, though she found she did not want to move. "My boss will dock my pay if I stand around talking. Then I will order a drink so you are working." Cole smiled, and it transformed his whole face, crinkling the corners of his eyes. "Whiskey, if you please. And whatever you would like for yourself. I do not drink while working." "Then a sarsaparilla, maybe. You look like you could use something after that excitement." Rosalie hesitated, then nodded. She made her way to the bar, very aware of Cole following behind her. The bartender, a grizzled man named Pete, gave her a look that was half concerned, half curious. "You have got yourself a protector," Pete said quietly as he poured the whiskey. "That was either the bravest or the stupidest thing I have seen in 20 years. Crenshaw will not forget that." "I did not ask him to step in," Rosalie said, but there was no heat in her words. She took the drinks and returned to Cole, who had settled himself at a corner table where he could see the door. Old habits of a man who had lived through trouble. "Thank you," she said, setting the glasses down. "For the drink and for earlier. I am not used to men standing up for me." "Then you have not met the right sort of men." Cole took a sip of his whiskey, his eyes never leaving her face. "A woman deserves respect, whether she works in a saloon or a schoolhouse. My mother taught me that, and she was the finest woman I ever knew." "Was," Rosalie caught the past tense. "She died when I was 17, cholera during an outbreak in Santa Fe. My father went a year later. I have been on my own since then, mostly." There was old pain in his voice, but also acceptance. "Worked as a ranch hand, a scout, did some time as a deputy in a town so small it does not even have a name anymore. Just drifting, I suppose, looking for a place to settle." Rosalie found herself sitting down across from him, something she never did with customers. "Why Abilene?" "Heard they were hiring drovers for the cattle drives. Figured I could pick up work, make some money, maybe save enough to start something of my own someday." Cole leaned back in his chair. "What about you? How does a woman like you end up in a place like this?" The question should have been insulting, but the way Cole asked it was purely curious, without judgment. Rosalie found herself answering honestly. "My father was a gambler, a bad one. He lost our farm in Missouri when I was 16, then drank himself to death within the year. My mother remarried quickly. A man who thought my father's debts made me his property to do with as he pleased. I ran when I was 17, worked my way west taking any job I could find. Ended up here 3 years ago." She looked down at her hands, at the calluses and the rough skin. "It is not much of a life, but it is mine, and I do not answer to anyone. Except men like Crenshaw who think they can paw at you." "No man had ever treated me with respect," Rosalie said, and the words came out more bitter than she intended. "They all want something, always. Even the nice ones think that because I work in a saloon, I must be available for the right price." Cole set down his glass with deliberate care. "Then you have not met me yet." His gray eyes met hers, steady and honest. "I am not like that, Rosalie, and I will prove it to you if you give me the chance." Something shifted in that moment. Rosalie felt it like a physical thing, like the world had tilted just slightly on its axis. This stranger, with his quiet confidence and his respectful distance, was offering her something she had never had before. The possibility that a man might see her as more than a convenience or a target. "I finish work at midnight," she heard herself say. "If you are still around, I would not mind some company on my walk home. These streets can be dangerous after dark." Cole smiled again, that warm, genuine smile that made her stomach flip. "I will be here." The next few hours passed in a blur. Rosalie served drinks and navigated the usual gauntlet of drunk cowboys and rowdy drovers, but her eyes kept finding Cole. He stayed at his corner table, nursing his whiskey and watching the room with the alertness of a man used to trouble. More than once, she saw him catch the eye of a man getting too bold with one of the other girls, and something in Cole's steady gaze made them back off. He did not say a word, did not make a threat. His presence was enough. When midnight finally came, Rosalie untied her apron with trembling fingers. She collected her pay from Pete, who gave her another searching look. "Be careful with that one," he said. "He has the look of a man with a past." "We all have a past," Rosalie replied. "Question is what he does with his future." Cole was waiting by the door when she came down, hat in hand. Ready, they stepped out into the Abilene night. The street was quieter now, most of the rowdies having drunk themselves into stupors or found beds for the night. The moon was high and bright, turning the dusty street silver. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. "I room at Mrs. Henderson's boarding house," Rosalie said. "3 streets over, it is not far." They walked in comfortable silence for a few moments, their footsteps echoing off the wooden storefronts. Then Cole said, "I meant what I said earlier, about proving myself to you." "Why?" The question burst out of Rosalie before she could stop it. "You do not know me. Why risk making an enemy of Martin Crenshaw for a saloon girl you just met?" Cole stopped walking and turned to face her. The moonlight caught the planes of his face, highlighting the strength in his jaw, the honesty in his eyes. "Because it was the right thing to do. Because you deserved someone to stand up for you. And because the moment I walked into that saloon and saw you standing there, brave and scared and refusing to back down, I knew you were someone special." Rosalie's breath caught. "You cannot possibly know that from one look." "Maybe not, but I know it now after talking to you." "You have been through hell, Rosalie, and you are still standing, still fighting. That takes strength most people will never understand." He took a step closer, but not close enough to crowd her, always respectful of her space. "I would like to get to know you better if you will let me." No expectations, no demands, just 2 people talking, seeing where things go. "Men always want something," Rosalie said, but her voice was uncertain. "I want something," Cole admitted. "I want to see you smile for real, not that forced smile you give the drunks in the saloon. I want to hear you laugh. I want to know what your dreams are, what you think about when you are alone at night. And someday, if I am very lucky and I manage not to mess this up, I want to kiss you. But only when you want me to, and not a second before." Rosalie felt tears prick at her eyes. She had spent so many years armored against the world, expecting the worst from every man she met. Cole's simple, honest declaration was breaking through defenses she had not even known she was holding. "I do not know what to say," she whispered. "Say you will have dinner with me tomorrow. There is a restaurant near the stockyards, nothing fancy, but they serve a decent steak. We can sit and talk and you can decide if I am worth your time. Tomorrow is Sunday, I have the evening off. Then it is perfect timing." Cole smiled. 6 o'clock. "I will meet you here if you like, so you do not have to give me your address until you are comfortable." "All right," Rosalie said. 6 o'clock. They resumed walking, and when they reached Mrs. Henderson's boarding house, Cole tipped his hat. "Sleep well, Rosalie Thatcher, I will see you tomorrow." She watched him walk away, his figure silhouetted against the moonlit street, and felt something she had not felt in years. Hope. The next day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Rosalie tried to keep busy, washing her clothes, mending a tear in her good dress. But her mind kept wandering to Cole Winters and his steady gray eyes. She found herself in front of the cracked mirror in her small room, studying her reflection with a critical eye. She was not beautiful, not in the classical sense. Her nose was too strong, her mouth too wide, and her skin was unfashionably tanned from all those years working outdoors. But Cole had looked at her like she was something precious. At 5:30, she put on her best dress, a deep green cotton that brought out her eyes. She brushed her copper hair until it shone and pinned it up in a softer style than her usual severe bun. A touch of rose water on her wrists, a pinch to her cheeks for color, and she was as ready as she would ever be. Cole was waiting on the corner at 5 minutes before 6, and the sight of him made her heart skip. He had cleaned up, his hair still damp from washing, and he wore a clean white shirt under his vest. When he saw her, his face lit up with such obvious pleasure that Rosalie felt her cheeks flush. "You look beautiful," he said simply, "like springtime. You clean up well yourself, Cowboy." They walked to the restaurant, and Cole kept up a steady stream of conversation that required nothing from her but made her feel included. He told her about Colorado, about the mountains that touched the sky and the meadows full of wildflowers. He described working on a ranch near Boulder, breaking horses and herding cattle through high country passes. His words painted pictures, and Rosalie found herself relaxing, her usual wariness fading. The restaurant was small and plain, with red-checked tablecloths and the smell of cooking meat heavy in the air. Cole held her chair for her, a small gesture that made her feel like a lady instead of a saloon girl. When the waiter came, Cole ordered for them both, asking her preferences first, adjusting his order to match what she wanted. "Tell me about your dreams," Cole said once the waiter had left. "If you could have anything, do anything, what would it be?" No one had ever asked Rosalie that question. She had to think about it, turning the idea over in her mind like an unfamiliar object. "I suppose I would want a place of my own," she finally said. "Nothing grand. Maybe a little house with a garden where I could grow vegetables and flowers, a kitchen where I could bake bread, and respect. I would want people to look at me and see a person, not just a woman who works in a saloon." "That does not seem like too much to ask for," Cole said. "You deserve all of that and more. What about you? What are your dreams?" Cole leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "I want land. Not a huge spread, just enough to run some cattle and horses. I want to build a house with my own hands, something solid that will last. And I want a family." He met her eyes. "I want a wife who is my partner, someone strong enough to face the hard times and share the good ones. I want children, lots of them, running around and filling the house with noise. I want to build something that matters, something that will outlast me." "That sounds like a good dream," Rosalie said softly. Their food arrived, thick steaks with potatoes and greens, and they ate and talked about everything and nothing. Cole asked about her childhood, the good parts before her father's gambling destroyed everything, and Rosalie found herself sharing memories she had not thought about in years. Playing in the creek with her younger brother, who had died of fever when he was 8, learning to bake with her mother those quiet mornings in the kitchen before dawn, the feeling of security that came from knowing you belonged somewhere. "I miss that most," she admitted. "Belonging somewhere. I have been adrift for so long, I have forgotten what it feels like to have roots." "Maybe you will find them again," Cole said. "Maybe that is what we are all looking for in the end, a place to belong and people to belong with." After dinner, they walked through Abilene as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Cole told her about his time as a deputy, the strange characters he had dealt with, the occasional moments of danger interspersed with long stretches of boredom. He made her laugh with a story about arresting a drunk who insisted he was the king of Spain, and the sound of her own laughter startled Rosalie. "When had she last felt this light? There it is," Cole said, his voice warm with satisfaction. "A real smile. I knew you had one hiding in there." "I have not had much to smile about lately," Rosalie said. "But tonight is different, thank you, Cole. Nothing to thank me for, I am having a wonderful time." He hesitated, then said, "Can I see you again, tomorrow if you are free during the day? There is a creek outside town where the cottonwoods grow. It is peaceful there, we could have a picnic." "I would like that," Rosalie said. "I work tomorrow night, but I am free during the day. Then I will pack us a lunch and we can spend the afternoon by the water." Cole walked her back to the boarding house, and when they reached the door, he took her hand gently. His palm was calloused from hard work, warm and strong. "Thank you for giving me a chance, Rosalie. I know you have no reason to trust men, but I promise you I will never give you a reason to regret this." "I believe you," Rosalie said, and realized with some surprise that it was true. Over the next 2 weeks, Cole courted Rosalie with a patience and persistence that gradually eroded all her defenses. They had their picnic by the creek, and Cole taught her to skip stones across the water. They attended a church social together, and Cole proudly introduced her as Miss Rosalie Thatcher, never mentioning her job at the saloon, treating her like a respectable woman despite what anyone might whisper. They sat on the boarding house porch in the evenings when she was not working, talking until the stars came out, and Mrs. Henderson made pointed comments about proper behavior. Cole found work as a drover for a local rancher named Jack Sullivan, a decent man who paid fair wages and did not ask questions about a man's past. The work was hard, long days in the saddle herding cattle, but Cole never complained. He would show up at the saloon when Rosalie was working, taking his usual corner table, nursing a single drink through the evening and making sure no one bothered her. His presence became a fixture, a source of comfort. The other girls started calling him Rosalie's Cowboy, and she stopped correcting them, but Martin Crenshaw had not forgotten. Rosalie would sometimes see him watching her from across the street, his expression cold and calculating. He never came into the Silver Spur anymore, but she knew he was biding his time, waiting for a chance to strike back at the woman who had humiliated him and the man who had defended her. The confrontation came on a Friday night in late July. Rosalie was walking home from the saloon, and Cole had been delayed at the ranch, unable to meet her as usual. She was halfway to the boarding house when 3 men stepped out of an alley, blocking her path. One of them was Frank Miller, Crenshaw's foreman, a mean-eyed man with a reputation for violence. "Evening, Miss Thatcher," Miller said, his voice oily. "Mr. Crenshaw sends his regards, says to tell you that your cowboy boyfriend should learn to mind his own business." Rosalie's heart started to pound, but she kept her voice steady. "Get out of my way, not just yet. The boss wants us to deliver a message, something you will remember." Miller took a step forward, and the other 2 men fanned out to flank her. "Nothing permanent, you understand. Just enough to teach you some respect. Touch her and you will regret it." The voice came from behind the men, cold and hard as iron. Cole stood at the mouth of the alley and he had his gun drawn. In the moonlight, his face was utterly calm, but his eyes were fierce. "Step away from her. Now." Miller turned, his hand dropping to his own gun. "This does not concern you, Winters. Anything involving Rosalie concerns me. I will not tell you again. Step away." For a moment, the night balanced on a knife's edge. Then Miller's hand moved, going for his gun in a smooth draw that spoke of practice. But Cole was faster. His gun barked once, and Miller's weapon went spinning from his hand, blood streaming from his fingers. The foreman screamed, clutching his hand to his chest. "The next one goes through your heart," Cole said, his voice utterly without emotion. "You too. Pick him up and get out of here. Tell Crenshaw that if he sends anyone after Rosalie or me again, I will not aim for his hand. I will come for him personally, and I will not be merciful. Understand?" The 2 uninjured men grabbed Miller and dragged him away, their footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Cole holstered his gun and turned to Rosalie, and his expression immediately softened. "Are you hurt?" He was beside her in an instant, his hands on her shoulders, his eyes searching her face. "I am fine. You arrived in time." Rosalie was shaking now, the fear hitting her all at once. "How did you know?" "I did not. I just had a bad feeling, so I rode hard from the ranch. Thank God I trusted my instincts." Cole pulled her into his arms, and Rosalie let herself lean against him, drawing strength from his solid presence. "This cannot continue, Rosalie. Crenshaw will not stop. He is too proud, too used to getting his way." "What can we do? He is the most powerful man in the county." Cole pulled back enough to look at her, his hands framing her face. "We can leave. Tomorrow, if you are willing. I have been saving my pay, and I have enough for 2 train tickets and a stake to start over somewhere else. There is good land in Montana, up in the Northern Territories. Wide open country where no one knows us and no one cares what anyone did before they arrived. We could start fresh, build that life we talked about, together." Rosalie's heart was hammering for an entirely different reason now. "Together, if you will have me." Cole's thumb brushed her cheek, a touch so gentle it made her want to cry. "I know this is fast. I know we have only known each other a few weeks, but I also know that I love you, Rosalie Thatcher. I love your strength and your courage and the way you refuse to let the world break you. I love the sound of your laugh and the way your eyes light up when you talk about your dreams. I want to spend the rest of my life making those dreams come true if you will let me." "I love you too," Rosalie whispered, the words spilling out before she could second-guess them. "I did not think I could love anyone, but you changed everything, Cole. You showed me what it means to be respected, to be valued. Yes, I will go with you. Wherever you want to go, I will follow." Cole kissed her then, a kiss that was gentle and fierce all at once, a kiss that tasted like hope and new beginnings. Rosalie wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him back, pouring all her pent-up emotions into the connection. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. "Marry me," Cole said. "Tonight, tomorrow, as soon as we can find a preacher, I want you to be my wife, Rosalie. I want to make this official before God and the law." "Yes," Rosalie said. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." They found a circuit preacher the next morning, a weather-beaten old man who asked no questions and charged $5 to perform the ceremony in his tent at the edge of town. Rosalie wore her green dress, and Cole picked wildflowers for her hair. They spoke their vows with the dawn light streaming through the tent opening, promising to love and honor and cherish until death parted them. The preacher pronounced them man and wife, and Cole kissed her again, sealing the promise. By noon, they were on the train heading north, everything they owned packed into 2 battered bags. Rosalie watched Abilene disappear into the distance and felt no regret, only excitement. Cole sat beside her, his hand wrapped around hers, his thumb stroking her wrist in slow circles. "No second thoughts?" he asked. "Not a single one. You?" "Never. You are stuck with me now, Mrs. Winters, Mrs. Winters." Rosalie tested the name in her mind and found she liked it, like the solid reality of it, the sense of belonging it gave her. The journey to Montana took 4 days, changing trains twice and spending one night in a hotel in Wyoming that had actual glass windows and a real feather bed. Cole treated her like a queen, insisting she order whatever she wanted at meals, holding her close at night and doing nothing more than kissing her gently, waiting until she was ready for more. That patience, that respect for her boundaries even though they were married, made Rosalie fall even deeper in love with him. They consummated their marriage on the 5th night in a small cabin Cole rented on the outskirts of Helena. He was gentle and patient, taking his time, making sure she felt safe and cherished. Rosalie had expected duty, maybe even pain, based on the crude comments she had overheard in the saloon. What she found instead was tenderness and passion, a connection that went beyond the physical to touch something deeper in her soul. Afterward, lying in Cole's arms with the moonlight streaming through the window, she cried tears of relief and joy. "What is wrong?" Cole asked, his voice thick with concern. "Did I hurt you?" "No, you made me happy. I did not know it could be like this." Rosalie pressed her face into his chest. "I did not know a man could make me feel so safe and so desired at the same time." "I will always keep you safe," Cole promised. "And I will always desire you. You are everything to me, Rosalie." They spent 2 weeks in Helena while Cole searched for land. He was methodical about it, riding out each day to look at different parcels, talking to locals about water rights and soil quality and access to markets. Rosalie used the time to buy supplies: fabric for curtains and clothes, seeds for a garden, a cast iron stove that Cole would have to haul on a wagon. She was building a home in her mind, planning every detail. Cole finally found what he was looking for 30 miles outside Helena, in a valley where a creek ran year-round and the grass grew thick and green. 160 acres of good land under the Homestead Act, free if they could prove it up by living on it and improving it for 5 years. Cole rode back into town with his face alight with excitement. "It is perfect, Rosalie. There is timber for building, water for the stock, and grazing land as far as you can see. And the view, my God, the mountains in the distance will take your breath away." They bought a wagon and a team of horses, loaded it with their supplies and everything they would need to start building. The journey to their land took 2 days, camping under the stars at night, and when they finally arrived, Rosalie understood what Cole had meant. The valley spread out before them, lush and green, framed by distant peaks still white with snow even in August. The creek sparkled in the sunlight, cottonwoods lining its banks, and the air smelled clean and fresh. "Welcome home, Mrs. Winters," Cole said, and Rosalie felt her eyes fill with tears. They worked like mules that first month, building a cabin from logs Cole cut and hauled. Rosalie learned to chink the walls with mud and grass, to help Cole lift heavy beams, to cook over an open fire until the cabin was finished enough to install the stove. Her hands blistered and her back ached, but she had never been happier. This was hers, theirs, something they were building together. By October, they had a snug cabin with a real floor, a working stove, and glass windows Cole had hauled all the way from Helena. They had a small barn for the horses and the 3 milk cows Cole had bought. Rosalie planted a fall garden, hoping to get some root vegetables established before the snow came. Every night, exhausted from the day's labor, they would sit on the porch Cole had built and watch the sun set over the mountains, planning their future. "Next spring I will start building up a herd," Cole said. "We can buy some cattle cheap in Helena, drive them out here. In a few years we will have enough to really make a go of it." "And I want chickens," Rosalie said, "and maybe a pig or two. I can sell eggs and butter in town, help with the expenses." "You are going to work yourself to death," Cole said, but he was smiling. "What happened to that garden you wanted with flowers and vegetables? I will have that too. I am going to have everything, Cole, everything I ever dreamed of." She leaned against him, his arm coming around her shoulders. "And I already have the most important thing, you." The first Montana winter was brutal, testing them in ways Rosalie had not imagined. Snow fell in November and did not stop until April, piling up in drifts taller than Cole. The temperature dropped so low that water froze solid in minutes, and going outside without proper protection meant frostbite or worse. They were snowed in for weeks at a time, unable to reach town or see another human soul. But somehow, those months brought them even closer. They learned to anticipate each other's needs, to work together in perfect synchrony. Cole taught Rosalie to play poker using dried beans for chips. Rosalie taught Cole to bake bread, laughing when his first attempt came out hard as a rock. They read to each other from the 3 books they owned, the same stories over and over until they had them memorized. They made love by firelight and talked for hours, sharing their deepest fears and wildest hopes. In February, Rosalie realized she was pregnant. She had missed her courses twice, and the morning sickness was unmistakable. She told Cole one evening after supper, watching his face carefully, unsure how he would react. Cole's eyes went wide, and then he let out a whoop of joy that probably startled wildlife for miles around. He swept Rosalie up in his arms, spinning her around despite her protests, kissing her face all over. "A baby. We are going to have a baby." His voice was filled with wonder. "When?" "I think late July or early August. I cannot be certain." Rosalie found herself laughing at his enthusiasm. "Are you happy?" "Happy. I am beyond happy. I am ecstatic." Cole set her down gently, immediately worried. "Should you be standing? Do you need to sit down? What do you need?" "I need you to stop fussing. I am pregnant, not dying. Women have been having babies since the beginning of time." But Cole fussed anyway, insisting she rest more, taking over the heavier chores, treating her like she was made of spun glass. It would have been annoying if it had not been so sweet. Rosalie let him pamper her, secretly enjoying the attention. When spring finally came and the snow melted, revealing green grass and wildflowers, Rosalie felt like she was waking from hibernation. Cole took her into Helena to see a doctor, who confirmed the pregnancy and said everything looked healthy. While they were in town, they bought supplies for the baby, tiny clothes and soft blankets and a cradle that Cole would set up beside their bed. "What do you want?" Cole asked on the ride home. "A boy or a girl, healthy," Rosalie said. "That is all I want, a healthy baby who knows it is loved." "It will know," Cole promised. "Every day of its life, our child will know it is loved and wanted." Cole bought 20 head of cattle that spring, scraping together all their savings to make the purchase. He drove them to the valley with the help of 2 drifters he hired for a week, and Rosalie watched from the porch as the herd spread out across their land. Their ranch was becoming real. Summer came in a rush of heat and growth. Rosalie's garden flourished, producing more vegetables than they could eat. She spent her days canning and preserving, putting up food for the next winter while her belly swelled with the baby. Cole worked from dawn to dusk, building fences, digging irrigation ditches, breaking horses to sell in town. He hired a hand, a young man named Tommy who had run away from an abusive father and needed a fresh start. Tommy worked hard and worshipped Cole, and his presence made the workload manageable. In late July, on a day so hot the air shimmered, Rosalie's pain started. Cole immediately panicked, sending Tommy on horseback to fetch the midwife from the nearest ranch, a woman named Martha who had delivered half the babies in the territory. Cole stayed with Rosalie, holding her hand, wiping her face with cool water, his own face pale with fear. "I cannot lose you," he said, his voice shaking. "Rosalie, I cannot do this without you." "You are not going to lose me," Rosalie said, trying to sound confident despite the pain. "Women do this all the time. I am strong. I will be fine." The labor lasted 12 hours, the longest 12 hours of Cole's life. Martha arrived halfway through and took over with brisk efficiency, shooing Cole out of the cabin when he tried to hover. He paced on the porch like a caged animal, jumping every time Rosalie cried out. Tommy tried to distract him with talk of the cattle and the horses, but Cole could not focus on anything except what was happening inside. Finally, as the sun was setting, Cole heard a new sound, the thin, angry wail of a newborn. He was through the door before Martha could call him, his heart in his throat. Rosalie lay in their bed, exhausted and sweaty and more beautiful than he had ever seen her. In her arms was a tiny red-faced baby wrapped in a blanket. "It is a boy," Rosalie said, her voice tired but triumphant. "A healthy boy. Come meet your son, Cole." Cole approached slowly, awestruck. He looked down at the baby, at the tiny fists and the scrunched-up face, and felt his heart expand until he thought it might burst. "He is perfect. You are perfect. God, Rosalie, I love you so much." "What should we name him?" Rosalie asked. Cole thought of his father, dead these 9 years, a good man who had taught his son to be honorable and kind. James Cole Winters, if that suits you." "James," Rosalie repeated, smiling down at their son. "It is perfect." Little James was a good baby, healthy and strong-lunged. Cole was a devoted father, getting up for night feedings even though Rosalie was nursing, just to be part of the process. He would sit in the rocking chair he had made, holding his son, talking to him in a low voice about the ranch and the mountains, and all the things they would do together when James was older. The years rolled by in a blur of hard work and small joys. They added to the herd, built a bigger barn, hired 2 more hands to help with the workload. Rosalie's chickens multiplied, and her eggs became popular in Helena, a reliable source of income. Cole started breeding horses, developing a reputation for quality stock. The ranch prospered, slowly but surely. James was 2 when Rosalie got pregnant again. This time, she gave birth to a daughter they named Sarah, a tiny, dark-haired girl who looked exactly like Cole. Sarah was followed 2 years later by another boy, Michael, who had his mother's copper hair and green eyes. 3 children in 6 years, and the cabin felt too small. Cole spent the winter of 1885 building an addition, 4 new rooms and a proper parlor. "We need the space," he said when Rosalie protested the expense. "And our family deserves a real house, not just a cabin." By their 10th anniversary, they had 5 children, James, Sarah, Michael, and twin girls born in 1886, Emma and Grace. The house was always noisy, always full of laughter and arguments and the chaos of family life. Rosalie sometimes looked at her brood and wondered how she had gotten so lucky. She thought of the bitter young woman she had been in Abilene, certain that all men were the same, that respect was a fairy tale. Cole had proven her wrong in every possible way. He was patient with the children, teaching them to ride and rope, to care for the animals and respect the land. He was firm but never cruel, setting boundaries but also giving them freedom to explore and make mistakes. He never raised his hand to any of them, something Rosalie treasured given her own father's quick temper, and Cole still treated Rosalie like she was precious. Even after 10 years of marriage, 5 children, and the inevitable toll of hard work and harsh weather, he still looked at her like she was the most beautiful woman in the world. He still held her hand when they sat on the porch in the evenings. He still brought her wildflowers for no reason. He still made love to her with tenderness and passion, making her feel desired and cherished. On their 10th anniversary, Cole arranged for Tommy to watch the children for the night. He took Rosalie into Helena, to the finest hotel in town, and booked them a room with a real bathtub and soft sheets. They had dinner in the hotel restaurant, just the two of them, talking and laughing like they had on their first date. "Do you ever regret it?" Cole asked over dessert. "Running away with a cowboy you barely knew, giving up civilization for a ranch in the middle of nowhere." Rosalie reached across the table and took his hand. "Not for a single second. You gave me everything I ever wanted, Cole. Respect, safety, a home, a family, a life worth living. I love you more now than I did the day we married, and I did not think that was possible." "I love you too," Cole said. "You made me into a better man, Rosalie. You gave my life purpose and meaning. Everything I have built, I built for you and our children. You are my heart." They went upstairs and made love slowly, savoring each other, relearning the bodies that had changed over the years but were no less beloved. Afterward, lying in Cole's arms in the darkness, Rosalie thought about that night in Abilene when a stranger had stepped forward to defend her. How one moment of courage had changed both their lives forever. "What are you thinking about?" Cole asked, his voice sleepy. "About how you saved me," Rosalie said. "Not just that night with Crenshaw, but in every way that matters. You showed me what love should be, Cole. What a real partnership looks like. You never tried to own me or control me. You just loved me, respected me, stood beside me. That is a precious thing." "You saved me too," Cole said. "I was drifting before I met you, just existing without purpose. You gave me a reason to put down roots, to build something lasting. We saved each other, Rosalie." They fell asleep wrapped around each other, and in the morning they returned to the ranch in their chaotic, wonderful life. The children mobbed them at the door, all talking at once about everything that had happened while they were gone. Sarah had lost a tooth. Michael had caught a frog. The twins had gotten into the flour and made a spectacular mess. James, at 12, had handled it all with the serious responsibility of the eldest child. The years continued to pass. James grew tall and strong, deciding at 16 that he wanted to study engineering, to build bridges and railroads. Cole and Rosalie scraped together the money to send him to college in Helena, proud beyond measure of their son's ambition. Sarah became a skilled horsewoman, working alongside her father on the ranch, insisting she had no interest in the domestic pursuits expected of young ladies. Michael inherited his mother's green thumb, turning the garden into a productive truck farm that supplied half the valley. The twins were wild and inseparable, getting into more trouble than all the other children combined. Cole's hair went gray at the temples. Rosalie developed lines at the corners of her eyes from years of squinting into the sun. Their hands were gnarled from decades of hard work, but they were happy, bone-deep happy in a way that had nothing to do with ease or comfort and everything to do with love and purpose. In 1895, on a crisp autumn day with the mountains wearing their first snow, Cole and Rosalie sat on the porch of the house he had built with his own hands. They were grandparents now. James had married and given them a grandson. The ranch was thriving, nearly 1,000 head of cattle and some of the finest horses in Montana. The twins were 17, making plans for their futures. Life was good. "Did you ever imagine this?" Cole asked, his hand wrapped around Rosalie's. That night in Abilene when I walked you home, did you think we would end up here? No, Rosalie admitted. I thought you were too good to be true. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for you to turn into just another man who wanted to use me. It took me a long time to believe you were real. I am real, and I am still madly in love with you, Rosalie Winters. Cole lifted her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles. You are still the most beautiful woman I have ever seen, still the strongest. Still the one I want to wake up next to every morning. Sweet talker, Rosalie said, but she was smiling. We are old now, Cole, gray and creaky. Speak for yourself. I am distinguished. Cole grinned, that same warm smile that had captured her heart 17 years ago. And you are magnificent. Age just makes you more so. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun paint the mountains in shades of gold and crimson. Rosalie thought about the long journey from that saloon in Abilene to this porch in Montana. All the struggles and triumphs, the children born and raised, the life built from nothing but determination and love. She thought about the scared young woman who had said no man had ever treated her with respect, and the cowboy who had replied that she had not met him yet. Cole had been right. She just had not met him yet, and once she did, everything changed. I would do it all again, Rosalie said softly. Every hardship, every sacrifice, just to end up here with you. Me too, Cole said. Without hesitation, you were worth everything, Rosalie. As the sun set and the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, Cole Winters and Rosalie Winters sat hand in hand, surrounded by the life they had built together. A life founded on mutual respect, unwavering loyalty, and a love deep enough to weather any storm. They had proven that one moment of courage, one stand against injustice, one offer of respect where none had existed before, could change everything. In the years that followed, they would watch their children marry and have children of their own. They would see the new century dawn in 1900, marveling at how much the world had changed since their youth. They would face hardships and losses, as all long lives contain, but they would face them together, drawing strength from the bond they had forged in a Kansas saloon on a hot summer night in 1878. When Cole passed away in 1912 at the age of 59, after a long illness that he bore with characteristic grace, Rosalie held his hand and told him she loved him one last time. He died in the house he had built for her, surrounded by children and grandchildren, a man who had lived well and loved deeply. Rosalie lived another 8 years, watched over by her large family. She spent her final years in the house she and Cole had made a home, tending her garden and telling stories to the grandchildren about their grandfather, and the day a cowboy had stood up for her when no one else would. She told them about respect and courage and the transformative power of love. She told them that one person treating you right could change your whole life. When Rosalie Winters died peacefully in her sleep in 1920 at the age of 64, she was buried next to Cole on a hillside overlooking the valley they had claimed together. Their children erected a stone marker that reads simply, Cole and Rosalie Winters. They built a life worth living. The ranch continued, passed down through generations, a testament to what two people could create when they found each other at exactly the right moment. And though the years turned into decades and the decades into a century, the story of the saloon girl and the cowboy who proved that respect and love could conquer anything lived on, told and retold by their descendants, a reminder that sometimes all it takes is one person brave enough to say, "Then you have not met me yet."